Our next session is a very interesting one. It's called Building a Business That Lasts. Now, won't all of us want to have an in into this session? This session is going to be led by Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan, a distinguished Indian business leader with 53 years of corporate experience, including key roles at Unilever and at Tata. His career highlights include leading Unilever Arabia, serving as managing director of Brook Bond Lipton, and vice chairman of Hindustan Lever. As a former director on Tata Sons board and an independent director for Castrol India and Press Trust of India, he continues to offer his valuable expertise. An accomplished author of Hold Your Horses, 12 books, Mr. Gopalakrishnan is known for his practical teaching approach. Please welcome him on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gopalakrishnan.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here with all of you after that stimulating session from Parimal Merchant, who's a teacher professionally. I'm not going to be, I'll be stimulating, but not as a teacher, because I'm a practitioner. I've spent all my career doing things in companies and businesses. And the question I would like to pose to you, which I hope to answer, is why bother about building long-lasting enterprises? You set up a company, you wanted to make some money, it lasted your time, your son's time. Am I audible? Sometime it'll go, all man-made things vanish. I think the reason is very simple. Nobody produces a baby in his house without the thought that that baby should live long. A parent does everything that is possible and within the means to make that child live long. The parent knows that the child will also die someday. That's a given. But you don't create an enterprise, you don't create a child to fatten it quickly, pull out its flesh like a broiler chicken, and finish it off. And yet today, many people are seeking valuation rather than value. And that caused me to think. Younger people say, oh, you worked in big places like Tata and Lever. You don't understand. I'd like to believe I do understand. And I want to present a few thoughts for you in regard to how to build long-lasting enterprises. It's important to build long-lasting enterprises. I'll give you a few numbers, and there won't be any charts. The Ministry of MSME has recorded that there are 63 million enterprises in India. 63 million. That includes one-man shows, 10-man shows, 10,000-man shows. Of the 63 million, only 19,000 have a capital of 10 crores. Just imagine. Of the 19,000 that have a capital of over 10 crores, only 5,000 are listed. Of the 5,000 which are listed, only 2,000 are really traded. Of the 2,000 that are traded, only 200 make up 80% of the market cap. Does it tell you something? It tells you on the one hand that we are lucky to have a very large number of enterprises. On the other hand, it says it's a lot of pygmies. Hell of a lot of pygmies. Why don't we have a few more? And I think that happens because of the mortality of companies. Whether you're a family business or a corporate structure, you make a company, it leads out its life, and then one, maybe two, if you're lucky, 3 generations later, it's gone, in many cases. Can't we have 6 generational enterprises? They may or may not be family. I personally do not believe in the great discourse about family managed business and professionally managed companies. I think the distinction should be companies that are built for long-term value and those that are not. A family business can be perfectly good at building value for the long term, and a big company, multinational company or domestic company can be very good at destroying value in a very short time. There are examples galore of both. So the real distinction is not about family managed enterprises. They have a unique set of problems, as do multinationals, as do listed companies. The principle that you have to follow, in my opinion, that I have learned, is that companies must be managed for long-term value. And those who manage their company for valuation are parents who are feeding their children milk, eggs, meat, potato, and at the age of 6, if they are nice and fat, they sell the baby. That is not enterprise. I'm sure many of you who are here are not of that variety, but if you look at our startup ecosystem, which is absolutely invigorating, make no mistake, absolutely essential, the cases that come up in the public domain suggest to you that there is somehow a mistaken belief in young people. I'm assuming young people are the ones who are in the startup, that building for valuation and becoming a decacorn or unicorn is the right thing. And that is another source of tension, I'm sure, within families themselves. So I started looking at this. As the lady just mentioned, I've had my career in 2 companies that have lasted quite long. And inshallah, they will continue to last for some time. And I said, what makes them different? If you see somebody who is elegant, elderly, in good health, and holding his wisdom, you tend to be curious. How come this man at 90 still goes for a walk, plays golf, plays tennis, and he seems to be very happy, don't you? There is some Ayurvedic formula that he has discovered. And I undertook a piece of research with academics, because research without academics is not considered research. And I've written 7 books on this particular subject of how can you stop being a great CEO, a good CEO of a good company, and become an institution builder of a great corporation. Therefore, I did not concentrate only on companies where I worked. My latest book is on Tatas, in fact, Jamshedji Tata, and lessons that can be learned from that. But the other 6 books are not about Tatas. They are about companies which are looking as though they're going to be institutions. HDFC Bank, I find that they are the sponsors of this. Marico, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Biocon, TCS. These are all companies that did not exist when I began my career. Now that might shock you to know that HDFC and TCS did not exist. I did begin my career a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. They've come up in the last 50 years. So there's some lesson that we can learn from all of this. And what I've done is to just put them together, and I hope leave you with the feeling that enterprise is worthwhile if you can build longevity into it. Just like children in a family are worthwhile if you can build character and value into them. Every parent doesn't do it ideally. Every CEO does not do it ideally. But I think the attempt should be there. And the first point I want to emphasize in this is purpose. We've talked a lot about real estate. I'm not an expert on real estate. Why are you doing business? Is it to earn a living? Is it to earn profit? If that is all your purpose, then you have taken away one of the possible strengths that you can build. And I know our real estate business is crucial to the economy. I also know that it's getting organized gradually from being a totally disorganized industry. And so I take courage and hope from the likelihood that if it gets better organized with a deeper sense of purpose, the real estate industry can be as important to the Indian economy in the next 50 years, or probably 100 years, than it has already been. You know, we don't live to breathe oxygen, do we? If you say, why do you breathe? Why does yoga, why is it recommended? It is to get oxygen into your body. Where do you get the oxygen from? The air. How much is the percentage of oxygen in the air? 20%? Now, if you say, what is the relationship of profit to a business? I say, yes, you must make profit, unabashedly. But can there be too much profit? And the answer is yes. Just like too much oxygen can kill you, too much profit can also kill you, whether a family-managed business or a professional company. So I liken the purpose of a company to Gangotri. And if you go to the Gangotri, it is essential, it is simple, and there's a nice trickle of absolute purity. That is what the purpose of a business is. Somebody who says, I want to clean everybody in the world. And there's a lot of cleaning to be done. I want to house everybody in the world. There are a lot of people to get housing. Your market will be there for a long, long time, whether they are small houses or big houses, lower income flats or higher income flats. But this Gangotri comes down onto the plains, and then there are icons and narratives that spring around it. Big names. Our own Ganga has so many stories of Krishna, of Ram, of Hanuman, of Lakshmi. There are temples everywhere. And that's how a corporation should be. With a good purpose, good practices, building icons and narratives. I don't know whether we pay enough attention to that. And I think when Parimal Merchant was talking about spending time, it's about building icons and narratives. There are 4 types of companies in my assessment. I call them answering to the acronym HEAD, H-E-A-D. H stands for heroic companies. यार करके दिखाना है, कुछ न कुछ बड़ा करना है. Just go for it. E stands for excellence companies. They are the kind of people who think of compounding their benefits. Improve costs, improve every year, 2% improvement. An example of H company, heroic company, is Apple. Apple is a very strong head company. They take other people's technologies, but very cleverly integrate it. And I found some of the presentations that I've heard this morning in the real estate sector from technology people are going in the same direction. Can I connect all of these together and just become an operator without owning the asset? Excellence companies, GE. Hindustan Lever. I mean, you know, soap is soap. You can keep innovating, you can add a little different perfume. Then there are altruistic companies. In दुनिया को भलाई करना है. And Tata is an example of that. So is Godrej, so is Birla. And then there are discovery companies. कुछ नया निकालना है. Knowledge is infinite. You may like him or not like him, but Elon Musk is an example, discovery company. No company is pure H, pure E, pure A, or pure D. But you're a mixture of these. What kind of a real estate company do you want to be? Now, if you want to be everything to everybody, then your purpose is not clear. It's something, especially as a newer generation comes back from their better education than their parents, it is worth thinking about. But I have found one thing. Long-living companies that I have experienced and known have a singular purpose for a very long time. They may change the words because the English language is also progressing. But the maqsad is exactly the same. If Jamshedji Tata said, Providence has favored me, and I want to give back what I earned from society, I think in one form or another, 6 generations later, Tatas are still doing the same thing. If William Hesketh Lever said, my objective is to clean the teeming millions all around the world. He said this in 1882. Hindustan Lever is still cleaning people. They may beautify them, you may clean them, you may clean their hair, you may clean their skin, but safai is safai. There's nothing wrong. People ask me, you studied IIT engineering, you went to Harvard Business School. What the hell did you do in a sabun company? I said, what's wrong in a sabun company? It has saved more human lives in civilization than the entire pharma industry with all their R&D. I'm not saying it's better than the pharma industry, but it is what you see out of it. You can see real estate as a bunch of hucksters who are just messing around, trying to get various laws bucked. Or you can see them as guys who are housing the teeming billions around the world, not millions anymore. And you get a very different picture of this when you define yourself that way. So I am reminded of something simple, because I am not an English professor or an academic. And I look back into our own traditions in India, where I say, what did Swami Vivekananda encounter when he went to Chicago in 1893? The top businessmen were all in the room. And they asked him, Swamiji, we don't understand what the hell you're saying. It's all very nice when I hear you, but we don't know. We are common business people. Can you tell us 3 or 4 things that will help us to run a good business? And here's what Swamiji said. He said, number 1, be self-aware. Your enemy is yourself, not your competitor, not the government. Your enemy is yourself. Number 2, protect your resources. You're able to do business because you have air, water, soil, money, people. Protect them. Because without them, you will not be able to do business. Third, serve yourself, but only after you've served other people. And fourth, he said, take tough decisions because that's necessary in business, but execute with compassion. See the difference. Now, to have said this in 1893 in Chicago, to a capitalist economy, coming from a Swamiji from India, I think is absolutely stunning. And I call this humanism in business. People ask me sometimes, I've just written a book on Tata, so I do a lot of promotion for the book. And a Parsi gentleman asked me, he said, everything you say is very nice, but when do you think we'll have a Parsi chairman again in Tata's? I said, I don't know. I don't know whether Tata has been lucky to have Parsi chairman or chairman who followed Zoroastrian values. The Zoroastrian values, I know nothing about Zoroastrianism, but it's written everywhere you go in Tata, Homa Hukta Hasta. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. That could come from any religion, by the way. I just happened to have worked in a Zoroastrian. And I say, it's not a Zoroastrian company. It's a company run with Zoroastrian values. So in the same way, I'm not saying you should run your company. You may be a Muslim, you may be a Christian, you may be a Hindu. Let's not make a virtue out of those, though the political situation is such that some people might. Run it with human values. And human values is what Swami Vivekananda said. I don't consider that to be Hindu. Or, if you prefer, you can say Homa Hukta Hasta. I don't consider that to be Parsi values. I consider that to be human values. And I think it's a question we must ask ourselves intergenerationally. Are we really running our business with human values? There are a lot of inhuman things for us to surmount. And we discussed this morning. I was very interested. And the Mantriji, of course, was saying what Mantrijis are supposed to say. And the president was saying what presidents are supposed to say. So that's fine. That's a predictable transaction. It's played out in every association. And the time was filled up, whether it's useful or not, you can decide, with the fluffiness of giving away various things which are passed on to the assistant standing close by. That's not what business is about. And India, in my view, needs companies which are she companies, S-H-E. This is a favorite trip of mine. I'm taking the liberty of placing it before you. My next book will be on this subject. Sustainable, humane, and enlightened. And I don't give a damn whether you're in the real estate business or the chicken poultry business or a vegetable growing business. If you can't be sustainable, humane, and enlightened, you will not last long. You decide. It doesn't matter. Equally, we must have governments which are sustainable, humane, and enlightened. And if you want high quality, government must also lead. But then that's not the subject of our discussion or my peroration. So I shall not harangue government on this, but I shall say we as CREDAI have been associated with many industries. One of the examples I want to give you. Can I take some water? No, don't worry, don't worry. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Irfan Saab. Thank you so much. What was I saying? I lost track. Yeah, one of the things about association, since I'm talking to CREDAI members, in all the associations I'm associated with, members come in with two buttons. They try to suppress one button and they work with the other button. The first button is one of suspicion. He's taken my market share, he's done this, he's done that, he priced, he undercut, all that. Second button says, don't tell him anything, which is of any importance. None of us is so stupid that we go and tell him, but inadvertently somebody may say something. But the software industry in this NATCON I'm talking about came up with a clean image, right from day one. I mean, Narayan Murthy is very fond of saying, I couldn't even pay for a black telephone. 800 rupees mein kaam ho jata. I remember when I joined Tata's, there was a particular minister, he's from a state which is well represented here, so I won't talk about him, who said, if you had only paid, 15-20 crore mein kya ho jata hai, airline tum kabhi chala lete. And that's when you come to a conscience point. And I'm not giving what is right or what is wrong. But if you can't sleep well in the night, then you don't do it. You're made that way, right or wrong. You may do other things which are considered bad or imperfect. I'm not saying anybody can be flawless. Nobody can be flawless. Tata's is flawed. Hindustan Lever is flawed. Every company has flaws, just like all people have flaws. But so long as it's an inadvertent thing and you accept your mistake. When Tata Finance happened, Ratan Tata was the first guy who got up and said, he got up and said, I was wrong. And I remember at AGM, I was sitting next to him, the shareholder got up and said, Freni, that must be his wife, will be very upset because I put all my savings into Tata Finance. And Ratan Tata jumped up and said, please tell Freni, not 1 rupee will go. When he sat down, I said, boss, you don't know how much is going to be involved in Tata Finance because we don't even know what happened. The thing imploded under our nose. Finally, I sat on the Tata Sons board and the proposal came to write off 800 crores. That's 25 years ago. And naturally, I signed for it because everybody else was signing for it. That sets a benchmark. That you have to do the right thing at the right time. And if you can't get an airline in 1998, you wait for it. Whether you should have got the airline in 2022, whether you succeed is a separate, it's a matter of faith. Life works on faith, not on 100% rationality. There has to be faith, emotion. Otherwise, what is a business? A business is not a machine. It's a human being, it's your child. You have to treat it like your child. And that's why I go back into this, that what do you need to have a long life business? And I'm going to summarize, and I hope it doesn't sound too boring, but I think some of them will click with some of you. And if nothing clicks with anybody, I suppose that's also possible. Those with long life, I have studied Japanese companies, I have studied European companies, I have studied Indian companies. I think those are the things on which I've got some material. And there are 4 things that I find common amongst all these companies which have lasted long. My definition of long is 100+ years. I mean, there are some Japanese companies which are reported to be 700 years old, but we don't have that here. Firstly, they have a very strong sense of identity. Cohesive, hum hain kaun? And that strong sense of identity comes with purpose. You can't have that sense of purpose. That is what must be transmitted from family businesses, father to son, to whichever sequence it is. And when it doesn't happen, you have to do something about it. Because without that, it won't last long. A very strong sense of identity. Logos and catch lines and all these are fine, but there must be a strong sense of identity. I remember when I was in Hindustan Lever, people would say when I was a junior officer, they said, सब कुछ ऊपर से करते होंगे, तुमको मालूम नहीं है. I said, हो सकता है भाई, लेकिन हमें तो पता है कि हमारा यहाँ कुछ होता नहीं है. When I was a vice chairman, they said, सब कुछ नीचे होता है, तुमको पता नहीं है. So I said, it doesn't seem to matter whether I'm up or down. Somebody else seems to be doing it. But that's not true. I know your business has come out of a certain context and background, and it's easier to talk about it. Sometimes you're totally paralyzed. But that's the kind of choice you make, and some people work at it. Second, long-lasting companies are actually conservative in financing. It's the exact opposite of what you get in the pink papers. The best MBA course is to read Economic Times and do the opposite. Because they are in the business of headlines. It's nothing wrong with Economic Times or Business Standard. They are in the business of headlines. If you look at a film star, I'm sorry, I'm told our compare is a film star, but no apologies. Sorry? You're not? Okay, great. But if you look at a film star and think that's that person's real life, you're clearly mistaken. There's many other things happening. In the same way, if you think that Masayoshi Son is the big way, they just borrow left, right, and center, $100 billion yahan de diya, 200 wahan de diya, kal 75 billion chala gaya. It's a nice story, yeah. You write a book. You can't run your business that way. So you're conservative in finance. Third, they're very sensitive to environment. Very sensitive. They are like plants. Hawa badalta hai, mausam badalta hai, to wo bhi badalte hain. And I've written a book on that, so I won't go into that. And the last is they're very, very tolerant to mistakes. One of the things that adaptive organisms do in nature is they're very, very tolerant to mistakes. When I think back now, I'm bloody lucky to have had the career that I've had. Because some boss somewhere said, इसने गलती किया है, लेकिन जानबूझ के नहीं किया है. When I was in Tata's, Ratan Tata said, can we improve the culture of innovation? I think one speaker is going to talk about culture tomorrow. I said, how do you change the culture of Tata's here? I mean, change processes, yes, procedures, yes. And I remember the 3 words came to my head: Niyam, Niti, and Niyat. Niyam is processes. वो तो सरकार में भी होता है. Niti is conduct. How you go about implementing it. Niyat is why are you implementing it. What is your maqsad? What is your objective? What is your purpose? And so I spent a lot of time, at the expense of Tata's, I have to say, but it's part of my job given to me, to understand this thing about culture. And I found that there's nothing unique about Tata or anybody else. But in some way which I don't think Tata people themselves understood, we allowed people to make mistakes. Sometimes it fell back on us. We were not a mistake-free corporation. कि बेइज्जती हो जाएगा, कल पेपर में छप जाएगा. And आखिर पेपर में छपा भी है. I mean, our Tata finance fiasco is not exactly unknown. And there are other fiascos which I've discussed in my book. And so I started a program which I learned from Volkswagen in Regensburg factory in Munich called Dare to Try. And I was giving a prize at the hands of the chairman for trying honestly and making an honest mistake. And it had quite an interesting effect. The first reaction was, pagal ho gaya hai, koi banda aaya hai. How do you reward mistakes? We always reward the best. Second, we got 12 entries in the first year, 2007, I think. All 12 were from our overseas subsidiaries. Because somehow Europeans didn't seem to mind that they made a mistake. Indians said, yaar, hum jaake maan jayenge to pata nahi kal kya hoga. Assistant general manager ka promotion band ho jayega. Today, I have now retired, of course. They get, I'm told by my colleagues there, 4,000 entries, almost 3,800 are from India. Has the culture changed? I don't know. But culture change takes a lot of time. But definitely something is happening. And people are saying, honestly, humne mistake kiya. I'll give you an example of something that got a prize for honest mistake. When we were doing the nano car, we had to reduce the weight as much as possible. And one of the teams took on that I'll make a high-impact plastic door instead of a metal door. Karo. They spent X amount of money. And they took it to the client, which in this case happened to be Tata Motors. They said, yeah, it's a nice door, it works all, but then it's too costly. You know, metal door costs 100, this cost 150, so can't do it. We gave it a prize for Dare to Fail. Ki kabhi na kabhi aayega plastic door, high-impact plastic door. That's an example. I won't go into too many other examples. And when I finished writing the books about HDFC, Kotak Bank, Marico, Biocon, TCS, I told my academic colleagues, you have to synthesize from this because plain Joe who's running a business, me minus 5 years, 10 years, I don't have the time to sit and read all these books and figure it out. And into one page, I converted all that wisdom which appears in each of the books. Then somebody came to me and said, do you think this will work? Why don't you take Tatas? After all, they have survived for 160 years. Have they also done the same thing? That's why the next book was on Tatas, which has just been published. And we've just given it a different format. We are not trying to prove that to the world. We said, what made Tata's pioneering? What made Tata's pioneering? Why would Tata's think in 1898 of setting up a shipping line to Japan to reduce the freight cost which P&O was charging? They failed. That's fine. But so did V.O. Chidambaram of Tirunelveli, who is now regarded as a national hero. Nobody regards Jamshedji Tata as a national hero. No problem. You don't do business to be regarded as a national hero. If you are, that's fine. In fact, I believe that if you had to identify the 4 or 5 greatest Indians of the 20th century, it would be Mahatma Gandhi in the field of politics. It would be Rabindranath Tagore in the field of literature, and so on. But in the field of entrepreneurship, it would undoubtedly be Tata. I put him into that league. Not because I have served Tatas or I'm getting my pension from Tatas, but because I think those are the things that he has set up, which has been continued. It's not difficult for one founder to set it up. But how did he find? And they were not all his sons, by the way. Dhurabji Tata was his son, and that's the end. And J.R.D. Tata was related in a roundabout way. And of course, N. Chandrasekhar, nobody has difficulty believing is not his great-grandson. So, pioneering, people, progress, persistence. When do you know when to give up on a project? Principles, profits, what are they for? And purpose. So, if you can hone these and I provided some frameworks. I have very little doubt in my mind that this industry, which ought to be playing a much bigger role, all the numbers were given this morning in the speeches, and I can't remember all of them, but it has a much bigger role to play. What you've done so far is just the beginning. Khel abhi shuru hua hai. But if you can cooperate, you'll be a much better organization. I was talking about the software industry. They came with the ticket of being clean businessmen because no excise inspector, anybody, he didn't know what was being exported. माल कहाँ है दिखता नहीं है बिजली में चला गया अंतरिक्ष में गया नीचे आया so he didn't know what to put duty on. And while they were gloating, and India had to be sold. We all know even today India has to be sold if you go abroad. And they said we are clean, we do business in a professional way. Satyam happened. And all of us remember the Satyam episode. NATCON came together. There would have been people in NATCON who would have said, "Sala kuch na koi to karne wala hai. Raju ne kiya, sabka badnami ho gaya." Some others would have said, "Wo chor hai, main chor nahi hu. Main saaf hu." And different shades of views. But they ganged up together and they made a deal that we will not pinch each other's software engineers because everybody felt insecure. I'm recommending this. There's a book on this, by the way. I'm recommending it because since you have now a uplifting, as I've understood, platform called CREDAI, maybe it's the time to consider. Because all this stuff about improve your quality and we'll solve your problems is all that you carry on with that dialogue. That is important. But you have to lift yourself. And that's what NATCON did. And who would have thought, when I began my career in software industry. But I was so ahead of my time, 1967, for God's sake, nobody could even see soft or wear. And I moved on into other aspects. It's a $250 billion business. Clean business. Probably the only business which is completely clean. In every other business, there is some hangover from the old days. So, the groundwork for having a long-lasting business is niyat, your purpose. The engine speed, velocity comes out of niti, your conduct, leadership conduct. And then come all the niyams. And I hope that governance models, which are an automatic concomitant of this. I have seen so many companies, even if they are listed, अरे यार वो रखना है independent director 2-4 बंदा बता दो. It is legally compulsory if you're I serve on 2 boards where there's no legal reason to have an independent director. One is a media company. Both are media companies, actually. And I said, why do you want an independent director? They said, we really want an alternate point of view. And I said to myself, these guys are, wanting to inflict pain on themselves. And then I looked back at the archives in Tata. There was no need for Tata Sons to have independent directors in those days. I'm going back to the 50s and 60s. And I came across a case where Ratan Tata, who was the chairman, he was the youngest chairman at 34 or something. So he's now 34 plus another 15 years after independence, so 49. He had a tiger of a director called A.D. Shroff. And those of you who are from Bombay will certainly remember the name A.D. Shroff, if you've not met him. He was the finance minister India never had. Tata have produced 2 finance ministers India never had, A.D. Shroff and Nani Palkhiwala. I mean, these 2 guys have done more for the budget and people's common understanding. So one day there was an altercation. I've seen this record, I've seen the letter itself, between JRD and A.D. Shroff. And A.D. Shroff came back to his room and said, Dear Jay, referred to me in the board meeting as a dishonest person. That makes it difficult for me to continue in my position as a director of Tata's. Anyway, it is your name that's hanging on the brass plate outside. So you have the right to do whatever you want to do. Please accept this resignation and thank you very much for so many years in Tata's. I mean, it's quite a tikha letter, you know. Now, if I was JRD, which luckily I wasn't, or neither am I now, I would have said, "Jane do saale ko." One possible reaction. Second, जाके उसमें साष्टांग दंडवत करो कि भाई माफी मांगता हूँ. These don't look like good options. So Jay writes him a letter, of which I've got a copy. It's a rare copy. Even Tata archives don't have this copy. But I procured it from the A.D. Shroff archives. And it says, "Dear Adi," his name was Ardeshwar Shroff, "I've just received your letter. And I agree that we had a difference of opinion on this particular matter. But I did not refer to you as a dishonest person. I merely said that the argument you're putting forward on this particular matter at this time is dishonest." That is very different from saying you're a dishonest person. And even if I've said that you're a dishonest person, I apologize. This is Chairman. Adi, you refer to the fact that my name is on the brass plate outside. You know as well as I that the Tata family owns 1% or 2% or something really negligible. This company is run by us, not by me. Adi, the problem is you and I are both cranky guys with a temper. Can't we put this behind us and carry on? I mean, ये humane है, affectionate है. J.R.D. Tata used to say that to be a great leader, you must be an affectionate leader. इसका ये सबूत है. It's possible to be an affectionate leader without losing your authority. And that's what J.R.D. Tata represented. Therefore, governance is very important. You must genuinely want an alternate point of view. अरे यार एक lady director चाहिए कहीं से औरत को पकड़ के लगा दो. Unfortunately, or my sister-in-law is free, उसको जरा काम पे लगा दो. These don't work. I have written a book on governance to emphasize what is lacking in our governance and how we can get better governance. But I'm not here to tell you about all my books. I just want to say in closing that I've had a great deal of fun to think about what I want to say to an industry which I don't know much of. I've been the victim of this industry quite a lot. But after coming here, I've talked to a few people and I've got this impression कि यार ये चांद उठने वाला है, कहीं है. लेकिन इसका जो आगे है ना, real काम बाकी है. But housing has been required from the time of Manu. कोई ये कल की बात नहीं है. और जब तक इंसान पृथ्वी पे है, housing की ज़रूरत है, housing, real estate. And so I'm going away with a lot of hope. Not because you're crooks. Somebody said everybody looks at real estate people as crooks. वो तो कहना आसान है. Past is history. The future is a mystery. The only ecstasy you have is today. आज का ecstasy लेके चांद पे पहुंचो. I wish you good luck and all the best. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat this was. Can we have a big round of applause? I have to say, sir, that I am absolutely a huge Tata fan and a big stalker, if you may say, of Tata ethics. And this has been nothing short of a masterclass in how to, you know, make a business last, how to build a business. So I have learned a lot. And contrary to what you think, I'm not a Bollywood star, but you are good looking enough to be one. Honestly, this was great. Can we have a huge round of applause? Definitely buying your book. And now, can we have, oh, they're already here, but Shobhit Mohan Das and Gaurav Gupta would felicitate Mr. Gopalakrishnan here. What gems he has put out today. He said that he's not an academic and a professor, but what he gave out today was nothing short of a master class. I think you do yourself very little justice. This was amazing.